Morant with a running start. Elevates. Dunks. Oh, my goodness. Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies won a thrilling basketball game in Minnesota on Saturday night. It was a back and forth affair with 25 lead changes, but the Grizzlies came out on top thanks to some Ja Morant heroics and some amazing play from Jaren Jackson Jr. On today's episode, I will talk about this big road win. Before I do, just a reminder, if you want to support my program, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Join up over at Patreon. You can access my exclusive listener Slack channel. You can talk about the Grizzlies or basketball or movies or whatever else you want around the clock. Also, you get exclusive bonus content, including a monthly bonus episode. So support the show. Do it. Patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, the Grizzlies currently in a very tough stretch of playing only Western Conference opponents. This game against the Timberwolves was the team's first win over a Western Conference team with a winning record on the road this season. You could perhaps argue they stole the game. I feel like Timberwolves fans feel like they let this one slip away. Part of that feeling from the Timberwolves perspective is allowing the Grizzlies to have 25 more field goal attempts than the Timberwolves had. The Grizzlies dominated the offensive glass. They rebounded 41% of their missed shots. They ended up with 21 offensive rebounds. That's the second most offensive rebounds the Grizzlies have had in a game this season. However, this was a close game throughout. From my Grizzlies perspective, from my own biased viewing, I did feel like the Timberwolves were more in control for more of the game than the Grizzlies were, but the biggest lead of the game was 6. That's the most the Timberwolves ever led by. The Grizzlies themselves got up by 5 at one point. So this was a close, exciting game, and maybe the storyline, there's a few of them. One of them is that Ja Morant came up the hero despite having a poor game. Ja Morant was just 3 for 17 from the field before his final 2 clutch acrobatic shots. He drives right into Gobert, does what I would say is a pretty typical double clutch layup where he hangs for a long time. That was after a timeout, so that was a called play. They called 12. And then the final one was an acrobatic, spectacular high floater. Seemed like an extreme degree of difficulty. He made it after the game. He's like, that's a floater I normally make. All right, okay. Seemed amazing, but he hits those big shots. Meanwhile, the flip side for the Timberwolves, they allowed the Grizzlies to score the final 6 points of the game. Rudy Gobert misses a couple of free throws. Julius Randle tries to ISO on Jaren with very little success. And then Anthony Edwards had a tough game. And Anthony Edwards blows up the final play. I saw some Timberwolves podcasters posting how he broke the play. You can watch Dante DiVincenzo get angry in the corner that they're not executing their normal out-of-bounds play. But Ant goes and gets the ball, ends up switched on to Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark plays amazing defense. Anthony Edwards is forced to shoot a very difficult step back. He misses. And because of that, Grizzlies fans feel good. Timberwolves fans feel awful. Now, those roles could easily be reversed. The Grizzlies trailed for a lot of this game. The Grizzlies were down by 6 with 5 minutes left. They trailed 125 to 121 with a minute and a half left. But because the Grizzlies come up with the big plays, suddenly we're feeling a little bit better. Like if the Grizzlies had lost this game, let's be honest, it would almost be full-blown panic because of the Grizzlies' lack of success against quality teams. And the Timberwolves are not the top of the conference despite making the conference finals last year. They're struggling right now. They seem to find their footing every now and again, but it's been basically one step forward, one step back for them this year. Right now, after this loss to the Grizzlies, they're just 20-18 on the season. But it was a win for the Grizzlies, so we feel pretty excited about that. This game, a lot of it continues for me being the ascendancy of Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. had a monster game. As Ja Morant struggled throughout in this one, Jaren did not. Jaren had 18 points in the first half, carrying the team. For the game, he finishes with 33 points, also gets 8 rebounds. He gets 4 of those 21 offensive rebounds the team had. Jaren right now is having an outrageously good season, and I feel like it's gone under the radar. It has gone way under the radar nationally. It's even gone under the radar, in my opinion, for Grizzlies fans. I don't feel like he's being talked enough about this season that he's having. Right now, we know Jaren, of course, is one of the best defensive players in the NBA. That's where he got most of his accolades. Defensive Player of the Year, of course. He just won the Western Conference Defensive Player of the Month award for December, but we don't talk enough about his scoring. Jaren is the Grizzlies' leading scorer. Jaren is one of the best per-minute scorers in the entire NBA. Right now, among all NBA players who've played at least 20 games, Jaren is 6th in the entire league in points per minute. You can do points per 36 minutes, points per 48 minutes, whatever you want to do. It all breaks down to point per minute. Right now, the only players averaging more points per minute than Jaren Jackson Jr., Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, LaMelo Ball, Nikola Jokic, and Luka Doncic. That's it. Personally, I feel like that should be a bigger deal. That one of the best defenders in the NBA is also one of the best scorers in the NBA. He's been going nuts this season, averaging a career-high 23 points per game. Also, in this game against the Timberwolves, Jaren played 34 minutes. That's not a big minutes total for most teams, but we've been, hyper-focusing on the Grizzlies' minutes totals this season, also in years past. He played 33 minutes and 56 seconds. We round that up to 34. Like Basketball Reference rounds everything up to the nearest whole number. This was actually the 6th straight game where Jaren has played at least 34 minutes. If you want to lower it down to 33 minutes, this was also the 6th straight game. He's played 33 minutes, of course. Jaren's never done that in his career before. We talk a lot about the low minutes totals for the Grizzlies players. And again, 34 minutes is not that many league-wide. But right now, Jaren has played at least 33 minutes in 6 straight games, and he's never done that in his career before. His previous long streak for playing at least 33 minutes was 3 games in a row. That happened last spring. Jaren currently 6 straight games playing at least 33 minutes. If you raise it up to 34 minutes, this is just the second time in his career he's gone 3 games in a row playing at least 34 minutes. So Jaren is playing more minutes. By the way, his averages in those 6 games, preposterous. 30 points per game. I'm rounding up. It's 29.7. 9 rebounds per game. 4.5 assists per game. And then almost 2 steals and 2 blocks per game. This is the past 6 games. Now, some of those minutes totals, there's multiple factors, of course. We know the Grizzlies play lots of players. Organizationally, they specifically keep their minutes low for everybody. That is a decision. That's been a decision they've made strategically since Taylor Jenkins got here. Also, for Jaren specifically, there's been the foul trouble issue. In years past, and sometimes this year, he has foul trouble. Also, sometimes the Grizzlies blow the opponent out, and so those minutes are low. So this current 6-game streak of Jaren playing at least 34 minutes in each game, it's a multitude of things. The games have been close. We've played 6 straight competitive basketball games. There haven't been blowouts. So Jaren's been on the court. Also, Jaren has not been in foul trouble for all of those reasons. Also, maybe Jaren's just growing into his body. He's now 25, physically mature, big, strong, ready to bang with the bigger players and able to hang in there. And also, by the way, able to score on anybody, it seems like. Jaren is one of the top drivers in the game this year, too. Basically, the only players his size that have a comparable number of drives per game, it's Giannis. Also, Franz Wagner drives basketball a lot. Also, interesting stats. This is sort of unrelated, but bears mentioning because it's fun to talk about with the Grizzlies' new offense. We know they're like last in the NBA. They're literally last in the NBA in pick and rolls per game. They averaged 9 pick and rolls per game. It felt like in this Timberwolves game, I don't have the numbers in front of me, they ran a lot more than normal. But still, the Grizzlies are last on the season in pick and rolls per game, but they're first in the NBA in drives per game. All they do, space it out, go beat your guy. And Jaren is one of the best in the NBA at beating his guy. Doesn't matter who it is. I mean, there was the play in this game where Dante DiVincenzo, a very good on-the-ball defender who's a wing, is guarding Jaren, and Rudy Gobert comes to double team to have help. It doesn't matter. Jaren, 6'11", beats DiVincenzo off the dribble, spins past Gobert for a dunk. Jaren is beating small guards off the dribble. He's also posting up small guards. He's beating a big guy off the dribble, no problem. Jaren is having an absolutely outrageously good season. I feel like it should be talked about more. I'm not worried about the All-Star game. I'm almost certain the coaches are going to vote Jaren Jackson Jr. in, like, easily. He deserves to be there 100%. I think he's going to get the media vote. I think he's going to get the coaches vote, so he will be a reserve. It doesn't matter at all that he's not winning the fan vote. Also, Ja's doing terribly at the fan vote, which I'm a little bit surprised by, but right now he was 7th among Western Conference guards last time I checked. But Jaren's been awesome. Also, Desmond Bane's been really, really good. Desmond Bane picked up the slack in the third quarter a little bit. It wasn't real slack, but Desmond Bane got going after a slow first half. Second straight game, he's done that. He scores 16 points in the second half, finishes the game with 21 points, makes 4 out of 8 3-pointers since December 1st. We're talking about 17 games. Desmond Bane is averaging 19 points and 6 assists per game, shooting 52% from the field and 90% from the line. So again, those November struggles absolutely behind Desmond Bane. He did struggle a bit with turnovers. He has some of those issues. Some of those turnover issues actually lead into a pretty interesting topic, I think, for this game, just about the closing lineups, the clutch time, the not having Ja Morant on the court. So Desmond Bane had back-to-back turnovers late in the game, about 3 minutes left to go. One of those was a pick and roll with Zack Edey where Zack Edey was not looking for the ball. That kind of leads into the issue with Zack Edey not playing that much. Zack Edey only played 20 minutes. He did have 7 offensive rebounds in those 20 minutes. My favorite sequence was when he got successive offensive rebounds off of 3-pointers. The Timberwolves were grabbing him, trying to keep him from getting these rebounds, but he's just so big. These were long rebounds, but like Zach just standing out, ready for the ball. Once he catches the offensive rebound, just pitches it back out to his shooter. Eventually, Luke Kennard finished the possession with a made 3. But one of Bane's late turnovers was trying to find Zack Edey on a pick and roll. Edey was not aware the pass was coming. I think that's a huge reason why Zack Edey is not being trusted yet with clutch minutes. I think he's a tad oblivious on the offensive end. Maybe oblivious is the wrong word. He's not totally up to speed. I think a lot of the times he feels like the players aren't going to look for him. Maybe that's fair because they don't look for him that often. But you frequently see Ja Morant trying to make maybe difficult passes to Zach that he's not aware of or / he doesn't get. This was one, seemed like a basic, simple play. Edey was not ready to receive it. So I think one of the reasons Zack Edey is not closing games very often is because you can't really trust him that much, or maybe the team doesn't trust him offensively. Also, as good as Edey has been for the overall team defense because of the impact he makes rebounding and his ability to guard bigs, I do think at the end of games, he becomes more of a liability. Game slows down, they will begin targeting and hunting for him. I'm pretty sure if Zack Edey had been playing the final minutes as opposed to Brandon Clark, the Timberwolves would have switched him on to Anthony Edwards, and then it would have been Anthony Edwards one-on-one against Zack Edey. I mean, who would you rather have defend that final possession where Anthony Edwards goes to a step-back three-pointer? Do you want Edey doing that play, or you want Brandon Clark? So I think that's a reason why Edey didn't play that much, even though he was very effective in his limited minutes. And I'm all aboard with this decision right now. 20 minutes seems great to me. I am not someone yelling that we have to play Zack Edey more. Right now, it feels totally appropriate. Right now, I'm basically the guy yelling, play Brandon Clark more. Brandon Clark has played very limited minutes the past 2 games, except for winning time. In crunch time, in the final few minutes, it's Brandon Clark out there. Of course, historically, Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. lineups have done wonderfully, and they keep doing great this season so far. A third guy, by the way, who I was looking this up, a third guy who's had wonderful success with Brandon and Jaren. I mean, basically everybody has good success with Brandon and Jaren, but Jake LaRavia specifically, the 3-man lineup data, when those 3 guys are on the court right now, the Grizzlies are outscoring their opponents by 24 points per 100 possessions when Jake LaRavia, Brandon Clark, and Jaren Jackson Jr. are all on the court together. The minutes were not ideal in this one, but specifically, that was because Ja Morant was missing everything, it felt like. Like the Grizzlies rolled out those 3 guys together, Jake and Brandon and Jaren, along with Scottie Pippen Jr. and Ja Morant, midway through the 4th quarter, but Ja Morant missed everything in this stretch, and the Timberwolves outscored him briefly by 3 points in that little stint. And by the way, so Ja Morant then subs out. That's another thing I was trying to get to. The back-to-back turnovers are by Desmond Bane. There's the one where he's trying to find Zack Edey. I got distracted with my Zack Edey tangent, why he's not closing games over Brandon Clark. The next turnover by Desmond Bane, he just was trying to go one-on-one against Jaden McDaniels, a really good perimeter defender. Jaden McDaniels picks his pocket, takes the ball away. Now, all of these things happened while Ja Morant was not in the game. Specifically, they happened while Ja Morant was waiting to check in, while Ja Morant was at the scorer's table waiting for a stoppage. And this was the 2nd straight game where the Grizzlies are giving up buckets and not scoring, and Ja Morant is not in the game, and Ja Morant is waiting at the scorer's table. It also happened in the Rockets' loss. This is because, one, Ja doesn't play that many minutes. Right now, the substitution pattern they have been using has Ja Morant coming off the court for several minutes in the middle of the 4th quarter. Against the Rockets, it ended up being a little bit longer than they wanted because a couple of minutes passed of game time without any stoppages. Now, maybe this is something that Taylor Jenkins should adjust and modify. So Ja Morant is not checking out with 6 minutes to go and then waiting to check back in with 3 minutes to go. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. It does feel like they need to find more minutes for Ja in the 4th quarter to avoid this. By the way, they did adjust the rotation. So one of the big 3 was on the court at all times. This is something we were all yelling about after the Rockets game. The Grizzlies only went 90 seconds in this one without one of Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, or Jaren Jackson Jr. on the court. Those 90 seconds occurred in the 1st quarter. Of course, the Grizzlies won those 90 seconds by 4 points. Anyways, let's take a break for some ads here, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the game and wrap things up. All right, so Ja Morant came through, of course, when it mattered the most with the 2 huge clutch baskets, including the game winner. It was His overall stat line, very much not up to his standards. Only 12 points. He had more turnovers than assists. Again, 5 turnovers to 4 assists. A lot of the assist to turnover stuff, though, I mean, some of it is Ja. I feel like a few of his turnovers were even more careless than normal for him. But he's having trouble. The team is having trouble. I need to correct that. The team is having trouble generating some of these easier looks when you're playing a tougher opponent. I feel like that continues to be an issue and something the team is going to have to work on. They're going to have to play the Timberwolves again, of course, on MLK Day. They have to play the Spurs twice. There's a rematch with the Rockets tonight. So lots of tough opponents coming up. The Grizzlies' turnover issues and Ja Morant specifically are a problem and something that needs to be addressed. By the way, the Timberwolves had a problem with turnovers this game. They had, I think, 19 turnovers. The Grizzlies got 13 steals. A lot of that good Grizzlies defense, I think, a lot of that good defense was played by Jalen Wells. So Anthony Edwards had a bad game. Much like Ja Morant had not that good of a game, Anthony Edwards was frustrated. It seemed like he had 15 points, which is way under his season average. He had 6 assists and 6 turnovers. Anthony Edwards missed all 6 of his 3-point attempts. I think he was very much so frustrated by the defense of rookie Jalen Wells. Jalen Wells keeps starting. Jalen Wells keeps guarding the other team's primary offensive threat, and he keeps doing this full court face guarding denial of the ball defense. It seems like it really frustrates a lot of NBA players. You give Jalen Wells so much credit for his defensive work in this game, slowing down Anthony Edwards. Jalen Wells did not have the best shooting night. Jalen Wells has had a lot of bad shooting nights recently. By the way, in 7 of Jalen Wells' last 8 games, he's made less than 31% of his field goal attempts. He was just 4 for 13 from the field in this one, which is 30.8%. The one exception in the last 8 games is that Sacramento homecoming game where he had 30, made 8 3-pointers. But Jalen Wells is not shooting the ball very well right now, but his defense has been spot on, and he absolutely has become a defensive stopper. Now, a couple of things I think about here. If Jalen keeps struggling from the field, is he going to start losing out on those minutes? He's not normally trusted to close games right now, despite his good defense. Against the Rockets, he was not out there. I don't think he played in the fourth quarter against the Rockets. He wasn't making any shots. He hasn't made shots. Against the Timberwolves, because of his defense, he actually was allowed to close. But he did still airball a clutch 3-pointer in the final 3 minutes. But he was part of the closing lineups over the final 6 minutes. And they did move some guys in and out. Like Santi Aldama played a few minutes in the final 6 minutes, but then he was pulled out to get Jaren back in the game. Basically, Santi came and just dispelled Jaren with about 6 minutes left in the fourth. Zack Edey, they did put him in briefly for a minute, but I don't know if it's because he messed up that pick and roll, or maybe it was because they just needed Brandon Clark to rest. But like Zack Edey came in for a minute to spell Brandon Clark. But they once again closed with my top 4 guys, or my favorite 4-man lineup combination, Ja, Dez, Jaren, and Brandon. Who the 5th guy is going to be, maybe it's going to change every game. In the previous game, it was Luke Kennard. Personally, I feel like Jake LaRavia should get more of a look here. Jake LaRavia keeps playing well, but in this game, they went with Jalen Wells to close it out because I think specifically of the excellent defense he played on Anthony Edwards all game. Now, also off the bench, haven't mentioned him yet, but Luke Kennard had another good game, continued his streak of playing big and important minutes. That's now 6 straight appearances where he scored in double digits. He now has 8 straight appearances with at least 2 made 3-pointers. This is the Luke Kennard the Grizzlies signed up for, which we haven't gotten that frequently since he's been on the team. By the way, that streak of 8 straight games with at least 2 made threes, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's tied for the 14th longest streak in franchise history with at least 2 made 3-pointers. Luke also had 5 assists. He had 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Over his past 8 games, he's averaging 5 assists per game. So that is very cool to see. Brandon Clark, like I said, he finished the game, played huge minutes, including the final stop on Anthony Edwards. He scored 10 points, made 5 out of 6 field goal attempts, had 4 rebounds, an assist, and a block. Scottie Pippen Jr. had 3 steals and 4 assists in 16 minutes, and they were all big plays. Everyone was a pick 6 steal. He stole the ball on the outlet pass to end the first quarter to score at the buzzer. He had another steal, technically a pick 6, but he missed the layup. But then in the fourth quarter, he stole a Julius Randle pass for an important layup. So Scottie Pippen Jr. made a big impact in his limited minutes. Santi Aldama only played 16 minutes. He did make 3 out of 4 three-pointers, scored 11 points. And the 11th guy was Jay Huff, played only 8 minutes. He missed all of his threes, but he did get a block and a steal. Now, coming up, like I said, tonight on Monday night, the Grizzlies play the Rockets, a road game. They are looking to get some revenge for not just the game on Thursday, but the early in this season blowout loss to the Rockets. The Grizzlies are attempting to catch the team ahead of them in the standings right now. If you lose this game, you lose the season series. So, massive game there. And then after that, of course, the road trip continues with those games against the Spurs, 2 games against the Spurs, then the MLK Day home game against the Timberwolves on Monday, January 20. Now, coming up for these games, perhaps we will get some reinforcements. We got an injury update on Marcus Smart. He has now entered the week-to-week territory, which, frankly, is good news for Marcus. He'd been out indefinitely, so now I guess his return, it should be coming down the pike at any moment, at least in the next week or 2. Hopefully Marcus Smart returns. Another guy to consider for that 5th guy in the closing lineups. By the way, thinking about Jalen Wells and his denial defense, I've been thinking, just imagine if that role was given to, Marcus Smart or, Vince Williams Jr. Maybe Marcus Smart's not going to play that way, but I can definitely see, and we saw it last year, Vince Williams Jr. forcing Steph Curry into tough shots, forcing Luka Doncic into a very subpar game last year. Vince is absolutely ready, I think, to play that ball denial defense that Jalen Wells has been excelling at. By the way, Vince, we don't know exactly when he's coming back. We don't have an update as of yet, but it should be soon. By the way, Gigi Jackson is listed as being out for the Rockets game on Monday. He has been practicing with the team in full, as best I understand it. He also has been doing full contact hustle practices. Again, as best I understand it, maybe he's not doing full contact practices, but I thought that's what the word was. So Gigi Jackson should be back very, very soon. And with that, I think we can wrap it up. It's going to be, again, a continued tough week for the Grizzlies. Hard opponents on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll continue wondering, I guess, how good they really are. But for now, I know I'm just excited to watch the team. I love watching Brandon and Jaren play together. Desmond Bane's playing great. Ja Morant, of course, wasn't that great last game, but he's only been back for 2 games now. He's still having a highlight-filled season. I do like watching those guys together so much. I think the team's going to be very, very good. We just continue asking ourselves, how good can they be? Maybe we'll get some more answers in the next week or so. Anyways, thanks everybody for listening. If you want to support my show, like I said, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Oh, by the way, thanks to everybody who came out to the Grizzlies watch party on Thursday night. Super fun time in super cold weather. We'll be back at it again on January 24th for a game against the Spurs. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.